use that. Is it working now? Is this working? Okay, sorry. Okay, so that's the reason I chose this, and at every age, people will keep saying, "Oh my God, we are in a crisis. Journalism is in a crisis," and so on and so forth. But I just thought I would go through what we have done before. I did this. I should admit for a group of officers from the Lok Sabha. I think that's where Sudhakar is going now as well for speaking. So if you can just go a couple of slides ahead, we are not going for this. Like a very excited person was the next one. So media, news media, Kal Aaj or Kal, which was for, obviously it was for a North Indian audience, so I had to make it Kal Aaj or Kal, straddling different voices as well. Just going through this because this panic about technology and what it has done to us and how it has changed journalism completely. I think let's go to the next one also very quickly. Obviously we are a land of a million voices and now everyone has a voice, not a million voices actually, 1428 million voices is what we are talking about, and everyone now has their own social media channels through which they talk. So we are talking about hugely evolving, hugely diverse ownership that you spoke about as well. And let's change the next one. And obviously you're adding OTT also to this group now. It's not just social media but OTT as well, which is now news channels on OTT as well and all information. And huge, I mean, I belong to that 909 TV channel, one of the first to be a news channel, private news television in India. I came from NDTV, but now more than 400 news channels is what we are talking about, and my own channel, of course, has more than 400 that we are talking about. So, why this was important is next one. India is going to be despite the fact that we keep talking about television as something that's going to die, it's going to be, India is going to be the third largest market globally. And obviously Telugu also is a huge chunk, even though Hindi I think is maximum, but we have a huge chunk of channels in every language actually, literally. Next one as well. So newspapers also huge. We all know 100 million copies is what we are selling and 1.46 lakh publications. This is all, we don't like to call it the past because they all coexist. Each time when television came, we thought print is going to go away. That didn't happen. Next one. So this is what I think is the biggest, while we talk about governments and policies of governments changing, but I think this is what has been the biggest disruptor. Internet and digital technology and the cell phones and app-based media which is coming. That is what has been the biggest disruptor in the media scene, and for very good reasons. Obviously now this changed the entire way in which people engage with the media, and we are not having only one kind of media that we can stick with and go with. And this is where I think it's very important. This is something that I picked up actually out of Dr. Pranoy's show that was there in 2019 or something, where I used to chat with Ruchi Sharma and talk about how news consumption and trends across the world. And in this, the fact that youngsters are consuming all their news, most of their news from in fact the digital sources, and I was surprised to know that 73% consume and get their news sources out of the mobile phones, and hardly 37% also for good reasons, that we don't have as many computers as we have cell phones, that's what they are consuming completely out of, 73% out of access to. Next one we can go to. It's an indication of what happening in the US when we started seeing, and our trends obviously mimic what happens in the US, and therefore that's the kind of trend that we are seeing, that people are increasingly depending on YouTube, sometimes with good reason, when Professor Nageshwar kind of voices are there which are independent, which are giving you substantive news, and otherwise depending on WhatsApp and other sources. And of course the biggest disruptor for this is, again, let's go to the next one. That everyone is getting their news through the, most of the people are getting their news through the smartphones, and as we all know, newspapers are dying because of newsprint and their the cost that they give to us. Television, nobody is sitting together in a drawing room and watching TV. Everyone is accessing in their own rooms whatever they want to see, and therefore it's not going to be through the thing. And of course, Mr. Ambani gave us Jio, which brought down data and brought down the cost of phones as well. And the good thing that happened was that the English hegemony actually was killed, and vernacular content in every language we are proliferating, and I think that's a very big advantage and very good thing that has happened out of this technology thing, that English hegemony is broken, and all of us in all the different languages are able to do. Convergence newsrooms is something that we've been talking about. All of us do television, all of us do print, all of us do camera work and we put out videos. So convergence newsrooms is something that we are talking about, and therefore we have news on the mobile. And the only thing that we have always thought about our strength is that different kinds of newspapers, there is no rope toke on who can own a newspaper, and therefore everybody can own newspapers. Politically there is no control on who owns newspapers, and that gives pluralism to the news room space, I think. And the other impact was that it gave you unlimited access to news, YouTube, social media, information, disinformation, misinformation. Everything is coming, and we don't know how as journalists to really counter it because we don't have the tools. Sudhakar is someone who does talk about fact checking, and he tells journalists to equip themselves with those kind of tools, because that is going to be the only differentiator actually between journalists and the others, because everywhere else, everyone can put out the news, and you prefer to actually depend on the WhatsApp university, as we all are very well known. And therefore we talk about the fifth estate, which everyone, all of us belong to it, but that is the media landscape now that we are coming to, where everyone, you and I, not just the social media influencers, all of us now are the media. And that thing which we had about one-way communication from television or from print media, that somebody who is qualified, as in at least you're a professional journalist who decides that this is balanced, we'll have two sides of the story and we will be impartial. All those which we are taught as ideals of journalism, those were followed. That now is getting completely disrupted with the new media, I think. And the next, the characteristics are again very, very, think that you don't have any geographical boundaries. So what Professor Nageshwar writes here obviously is read across the world by people who already know that he's someone that you can follow for news from here. So similarly for everyone, we can make those cross-border connections and show that we are having a view and also being able to get that. But the problem was that there is no editorial supervision in all of this, and there is you do not play by any rule book of journalism. This is the way we do the ethics of journalism, which we are taught about or we speak about in our classrooms. That no longer occupies, and the regulation and the defeat is where how to governments, how to control for them, because this will also include transmatter connections. It could be of terror groups. Earlier, police officers would tell us about looking into chat rooms where people are chatting, the terror groups are chatting, and now it's such a open field that anyone can connect with anyone, and that's, I think, rules of the media. And that's where I think it's the most important for us, that the rules of the game have actually changed, because people don't need reporters anymore. All the stars, all the celebrities, all the film stars, politicians, everyone has their own either Twitter, Facebook, Insta, wherever. And we are a country where we have nearly 50% internet penetration, 47.8% internet penetration. And interesting part is in that 399 million come from rural India, 360 only from urban India. And many of them are now in fact women who are accessing it. Of course, they may be accessing it for accessing WhatsApp or entertainment, but internet is growing hugely, and you have 700 million people who are on WhatsApp, who are on Facebook. Facebook has, I think, around 560 million or something. Then all these are big numbers, and therefore people are going to get their sources out of what is easy for them. So therefore nobody needs you. Earlier, if we went in question, even if you interviewed a Shah Rukh Khan, you are allowed to ask him a question about what he is saying. Any politician, now that is not required. He says what he wants to say, and we all accept it. And this is not the case just with celebrities, whether it is parliament or it is our assembly. What they put out, we are at their mercy to just use what they say, and very few voices of analysis may come out, perspective might come out, which is a very important area where Professor Nageshwar comes in, and people like him give perspective to the news happenings that are happening. But as reporters, increasingly you realize that you are only putting out what is coming there, and therefore it's a one-way communication that they are giving. Assembly also, they give out what they want, they block when the proceedings are not according to their liking. Same thing Parliament also of course does, what happened during the Telangana voting itself. So they do that, and they do it, where the cameras are put when they want, wherever the camera to be put, and then the information that comes out of there also. And even otherwise, whether you go to Delhi corridors of power or here, if you're not going to put out, you are invited to a press conference or a briefing, and if you don't put out what the minister or the chief minister or the prime minister wants you to put out, you're not going to be invited to the next one. And you're going to be just blocked out. So that way, the rules of the engagement have completely changed, and you are not in a position to actually control the narrative in that sense of where you are coming from. You have gone to the next one as well. So okay. So the impact of the thing was about, obviously the positive thing was you can influence public opinion or setting public political agenda, discrediting political leaders, which is what they are afraid of, and that people with similar thinking, it could be even not just terror groups, they even may be afraid of people who belong to the other side, because now it is one side or the other side. Just them coming together on a platform is something very scary for them, and therefore whichever the government is in place, it doesn't have to do with only a right-wing government or a left-wing government or some other kind of political thing. Everyone is controlling media space in exactly the very same way, I think. And therefore, the next one we go. So no direct questioning by the media is not there. No original investigative stories, because access itself is very difficult, and difficult to even verify claims that are made, because otherwise you'll be walking into the corridors of power, talking to bureaucrats, some people will tell you something. Even that to verify now is very difficult, because access is controlled, and even when they are talking to you on phone, they are very conscious that they are being recorded, and they know that they cannot tell you certain things. Even when you go off camera, they are worried that there could be a hidden camera, because all that is also happening. So the trust factor that journalists should be able to do, that is something that is going, and therefore public opinion is being manipulated. They are controlling minds, whichever the governments that may be. And of course there is going to be caste polarization. Next one we can go to, I think, caste and religion polarization and echo chambers. Very dangerous, that we really don't come, we only keep following who we like, and therefore we hear only what we want to hear, and the algorithm is going to completely give you only that side of the picture which you are agreeing with, and that is where the danger, I think, lies, where public perceptions are concerned. And artificial intelligence, the last of all, that we were all talking about ChatGPT. I think yesterday the Hindu had this article also, which is being debated about how they take all the information from all the websites free of cost, and then they scrape all the data from there and use it. So earlier, if Google was there, the difference was that they at least diverted it to your website, whether it is Andhra Jyoti or Inadu, wherever. So you have some gain from it being on a Google search engine. Now what happens, the ChatGPT makes all the billions that he's talking about, whereas he's scraping, the larger the language model, the better it is, so the more the data. So they use all our journalistic work, and they are the one who gain the revenue. So newspapers which are even otherwise bleeding, or newspapers in any form, I'm saying, doesn't have to be the paper form, news media or television or everything else, they are learning from them and they are using it, and therefore they're, in a sense, they're milking it. Though it's an opportunity for all of us, obviously, when you're able to get ChatGPT, which of course is a giveaway. When you ask ChatGPT to write something, it writes it in such a manner that anyone can make up. There'll always be one concluding paragraph. As journalism professors, my professor used to say, don't have that thing where you feel that urge to write. And so, in conclusion type of thing, something as a learning journalist, you tend to do that you draw a conclusion out of that. Don't do that, we used to say. But ChatGPT does that. But now there is one other site which tells you how you can personalize your ChatGPT module also, which you get, so that your style, the thing will adapt, and nobody will be able to know any different from that. And therefore, I think if you go to the next one also, social media, all of us know how they are controlling us, and that we need to develop tools for it. The next one is it's a group of journalists. This of course is a basis on which we do it. Next one. So this is what is happening to us right now, that they are expanding control, legislative control, to not just news platforms, news websites, and OTT as well. And that's what, of course, it's meant to stop the false information, objectionable information. And the dangerous part is now they will make you reveal your sources, and therefore no source will ever want to talk to you itself. And of course, we have seen several examples of posts of journalists, activists, anyone being blocked, opposition politicians, anything can be blocked. And of course it goes against the principles, whether it's the Editors Guild or many journalist organizations have spoken about the danger of something like this. And of course the next one, this is something that is there now in front of us, digital personal data protection bill, which could be a censorship tool in disguise. and it could undermine the practice of journalism because we are forced to reveal sources, and you can stop any news story, and it is difficult to access records even through RTI. So these are the dangers that the new data bill comes. All these we never debate anywhere because we are not free to debate anywhere, nor even if you say that the government is trying to do something like this, you are anti-government. If you, all of us as journalists have seen this kind of a trolling happen. So everyone's careful about, bureaucrats won't like anything. They all know that their social media profiles are being monitored. So is the case with all journalists about where you stand, what is your neutral ground. So of course, the welcome trend is what we still say citizen journalism, and we say data journalism. Let's go to the next one as well, which is what Sudhakar does about using data. But then they get very specialized that when you go to your doctor, it's like you have to go first to the neurologist, then the nephrologist, then the oncologist, then the urologist, then the whatever gastroenterologist. Everything, everybody will tell you their side of the picture. नहीं बताएंगे. Whether there's interaction between drugs, आप actually क्या हुआ है, you will never know because you will be sent to so many different specializations कि confuse हो जाओगे, बोलते हैं ना. That is what is the thing. Even in journalism, we've become so niche driven that to give you the comprehensive picture, I think, is becoming more and more difficult. But of course, data driven journalism is a very good trend that we have, and to learn those tools is going to be important. And I think there is no going back. We may criticize social media and otherwise. What we need to do is actually, I always hope that only youngsters will come up with models that are still following the old principles of journalism and yet use technology to be able to get what we want, to preserve our democracy, to preserve our space. And people always think troll journalists and do it, it's okay. They don't realize they're harming themselves by targeting journalists and saying that you are the ones who are doing it. Sorry for I've taken very, very long, but thank you for this opportunity, and especially doing it in front of the eyes of the industry, people who I hugely respect. That is something that I think is a blessing for me. I only was hoping that we will start a debate about thinking about opportunities and thinking about what we can do within this landscape, because it's like freebies. Once it's a one-way road. If somebody gives you, something, no other government can come and take it back. They will have to go that way. Similarly, these kind of bills that come up, data or controlling the media in some other manner, it can never be reversed. It will always be, you will be fighting for space that your constitution has given you, but you are never able to hold on to that space. That's why I think we always need seniors who are able to talk up, and people who have the credibility and who have the standing in the industry. When they talk, people sit up and listen, and that's why I think it's very important that we have that generation. Even if people may not use the same tools as the youngsters use, I may not be on Instagram, I may not be on the younger tools, but I think that voice is important, that experience is important. Thank you so much. All of us know, of course, about the models that have evolved. All of us are privy to it, about how money is being earned in journalism and corporate ownership. There's no law against anyone owning media channels, so we can't prove that, except we are not able to come up with any sustainable models yet, but there are small models like Professor has shown, and there are, of course, a few examples here and there, but to stand up and fight for that space is what we are all hoping we will manage to do. And thank you so much for everyone has lots of things to say about you, sir, but the fact that you turned it into a debate on what the future of journalism to be, that precisely shows who you are. Thank you so much.